Hello, everyone. My name is Colt, and what I want to talk about today is it's just kind of more of a word of caution, actually. And I'd also like to tell you a story. So, this word of caution really has to do with who are you serving? Okay, so who are you serving relative to your sexual energy, relative to what you're doing with your sexual energy, relative to you buying into pornography, let's say. So, I can tell you one thing. Again, we're going to start at the material level and we're going to go more subtle. So on the material level, who are you serving? You're serving people who are making money off of you, making money off of your discharge of energy, right? Making money off of your baser instincts, making money off of your lower self, making money off of you depleting yourself. Okay, so that goes without saying. That's the obvious, right? Pornography is highly addictive and people know it, right? It's the same reason we have drug dealers who deal drugs. Drugs are highly addictive, and anyway, you get it. I don't have to over explain that. So on a more subtle level, there's something else that's quite interesting. So on a subtle level, I've always intuitively had this feeling that there was something, it could be a lot of somethings, but something attaching itself to auras, to energy auras. And I work on other people. I do energy work and I do all sorts of things. And I've had a number of very interesting experiences in my life that are, they're visions. And I've always been inclined towards visions and seeing things, whether it's like ghosts or other entities or just all sorts of woo-woo, right? So, part of my conscious mind wants to question these things. But the reality is everything is incredibly subtle. And there's so many layers to reality that we only really perceive what our sensory system can actually sort of grasp, right? So what I'm talking about here is I'm talking about parasitic entities specifically. So this idea that there are entities that will latch onto your energy body and essentially get you to do things for them so they can feed off of you, I don't think that's implausible, right? And the reason that is a simple principle: as within, so without, as above, so below. Okay, so science has shown us that there are parasites that actually can exist in our bodies that excrete compounds that get us to crave sugar. All right, well, that's super interesting, right? So again, we're not in control of our own domain, right? There's all sorts of parasitic and symbiotic relationships with other beings and life forms, even on the material plane, even on the sort of physical level of existence. So why wouldn't there be, on other dimensional scales, there also be essentially the same thing, energetic parasites, right? And the one thing I've always experienced is that really that life from point A to point B, from birth to death, I've thought for years and years and years that, what's my purpose, right? And I think this is a question that many of us have asked that. Like, what am I doing here? Like, what am I doing on this planet? What am I doing to fill my time, right? Like, I wake up in the morning and then I go to bed at night, and there's this piece of time that I can fill doing with whatever I choose to some degree, right? So the one thing I kind of thought about is that this idea of purpose oftentimes gets conflated as career, making money, and some people conflate it in terms of meaning it's about helping people. And maybe that's true. And again, I think every individual has a different purpose. I think some people's purpose is simply to have children and to raise kids. Okay, so. But I kind of kept thinking, like, there's got to be a unifying purpose on this planet for all human beings, because everything, there's always a unifying principle and there's always a separating principle. The separating principle is that I, the individual, Akal, have a particular purpose, and my purpose may not be like your purpose. The reality is we all have a purpose, and so that question is what is that purpose collectively? And as I see it, it's about vibration. It's about frequency. It's about the vibration, the frequency that we harness, cultivate, and get to, essentially die with, right? So what is the vibration we carry until the moment of death? And after the moment of death, I'm not going to go into speculation as to what I perceive there. But the reality is that I do believe that if we carry a certain frequency, we essentially are not tasty. we don't taste good to these other entities, right? If we carry a low vibration or low frequency, we're much more tasty. So going into this idea that, we, over the course of our life, people want to talk about karma, let's say. So let's say you've got these little clots in your energy body. We'll call those little karmic clots, or, and I perceive these when I'm doing work on people in their energy body. It feels like almost like there's a rock or a stone in their field. And I use various methods to kind of break up these stones or these clots. But the one thing is that in some ways, this is a bit like undoing karma, right? Because, and again, the idea here is that something has to come across our awareness. If something comes through our awareness and we're able to objectively simply be present with it and not to become overly engaged with it emotionally, then it will evolve and change, right? And so it's a bit like, out with the old, in with the new, right? So in other words, we're increasing our frequency through the process of objectivity, because through the process of objectivity, we are shining light on something. Light. So frequency, right? Going back to frequency. Light is a frequency. Sound is a frequency. So this idea that we can choose our frequency on an everyday basis through our actions. What are the foods we eating? That'll increase or decrease your frequency. What are the actions of your day? What are the things you're doing? Are you doing things that add to your life or take away, etc.? So going back to the idea of sexual energy, it is my feeling, based on a story I'm going to go ahead and tell you, it's my feeling that there are entities that crave our sexual energy. And keeping in mind that your sexual energy is not separate from spirit, right? Its spirit is, as this energy rises, ascends, becomes cultivated, it basically becomes spirit, right? So as it descends and it becomes locked into the sexual sex center, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but as it becomes locked into the sex center, then it resonates at that particular frequency. So the lower chakras have a lower frequency, lower vibration. The higher chakras, and I hate this idea of lower or higher, but it's an increased frequency, all right? So we're not talking about better or worse. This is not what I'm describing here. I'm not saying lower chakras are bad, upper chakras are good. That's not what I'm saying, because that will create separation within yourself if you're having those ideas. So the experience I had was, this is about 6 years ago. And this was when I was, actually maybe it was 7 or 8 years ago. I don't know, whatever, a while back. And during this period of time, I was in a long distance relationship. A lot of the relationship, obviously, as it was long distance, so much of the sort of sexual dynamic of the relationship was in my head, in the realm of fantasy. So I was dealing with a lot of fantasy, and the thing is that anyone who knows about fantasy, kink, the sort of psychological aspect of sex, is that it will overheat the genitalia. It will highly concentrate the energy at the genitalia. And I call that top-down stimulation, right? So the stimulation occurs through the visual cortex, through thinking about something, fantasizing about something. It will cause the stimulation, so top-down stimulation. And so during this period of time, I was particularly tormented by this energy, and it was very intense, very intense. And I wasn't fully practicing the transmutation practices like I am now. So in other words, it was all just sitting in the sex center for the most part. And I wasn't able to shift it around because I wasn't really aware of how to shift it around. So I guess I was aware of how, I just didn't do it. I think that's a reality. But one particular evening, going through this particularly difficult period of time, I'm overwhelmed by sexual energy. I felt a presence, and I was in my studio, which is the space behind me here, and I felt this presence, and so I just laid down. I'm relaxing on the floor, and all of a sudden I saw a woman. And again, I'm telling you, I saw a woman. It was as clear as if it was an actual physical person. Okay, and the other thing I should say about this woman was that she was unbelievably beautiful, right? So literally, like, if you could have dissected my brain, or my thoughts rather, and said, okay, this is the ideal sexual partner for me, that would have been her, okay? Like, physically, everything was perfect, et cetera, et cetera. So, but immediately, you know, again, I've had a lot of visions and experiences before, so I know how to kind of let go into them. So I let go into the experience and started having sex with this entity, okay? So, and I hesitate to call this entity a succubus, but that's kind of, you know, because I don't know the definition precisely of what a succubus is, but this is what I believe it to be. I believe it to be a parasitic entity. And I had this in the back of my mind while this experience was happening, but I was really enjoying myself. So, and again, like, my body couldn't tell the difference, right? My body was responding as if it was a real woman. And this is a very real thing. Like, your body doesn't necessarily know if something is not real or real. And when I was going through college, getting my master's in, you know, exercise physiology, we did a lot of studying on sort of mental practice. You would practice a skill, some sort of athletic skill, and in order to prepare for an athletic event, and what would end up happening is that if you were practicing it mentally, it would actually augment and change your nervous system so that you could, once it was time to perform that skill, you were able to do it more seamlessly. Okay, so going back to my story, me and this sexy entity are doing our thing. The moment of ejaculation is about to happen, right? So I felt the pressure starting to build. But all of a sudden I was like, I relaxed my pelvic floor, I relaxed my pubis, and I says, no, that's mine. That's my energy. So now the next part is why I believe that this was a parasitic entity that was taking the form of something that wanted my energy. And the reason is I saw this entity, all of a sudden turned towards me, gives me this very nasty look, a total, like a scowl, right? So it gives me this nasty scowl after I said, I'm not going to release this energy. You're not going to have it. And poof, just simply disappeared. Okay, completely gone. I kept my energy. I felt great. My vibration went up. So in other words, I was no longer tasty. And so this is something I want you to kind of consider. I think intuitively, on some level, you guys are whoever's watching this video, you may know on a deep down level that the universe is much more expansive, much more broad than any of us can understand. So if you're going to live this objectivist reality, saying that, oh, you know, what reality is only what I can smell, hear, taste, touch, etc., you're limited, right? That's a limited perception. The reality is that there are layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of life in existence that happens on all frequencies. And you can choose which frequency you want to attune to within the realm of human potential, okay? So you can choose that frequency. So when you're ejaculating the pornography, who are you serving? I hesitate to use the word Satanists or whatever the controlling elites of the world, whatever they're into. The people who are funneling in tremendous amounts of money into garbage food, garbage entertainment, pornography, things of that nature, which contribute very little to humanity. Again, I don't know all this for certain, but again, to me, it's a satanic thing. So anyway, so you can choose to give them your energy or not. And you're giving them your energy. You're also, again, it's in the form of your money perhaps, or your time, or, if you're looking at something on Pornhub, let's say, you're essentially, your click is giving them advertising money. And again, you're just adding to the whole system. Okay. I'm not poo-pooing pornography. Like I said, it's your choice. You just need to make it a choice. No more autopilot. Okay. So that's on the physical plane. So right now, like the inner rebel in you should be screaming, screw these people. I'm not giving the oligarchs my money anymore, or whatever you want, whoever you want to blame, capitalists or commies or, whatever it is. You can blame who you want. The reality is that, there's also, again, the other dimensional existence. So you also have a responsibility to yourself, to your energy, to your purpose, which is the increased frequency as you're approaching the end, your last days. You also have a responsibility there also to gather that frequency. For me, the story I tell myself, I shouldn't even say story. It's kind of a I won't call it an affirmation, but the sort of the vision dash inner dialogue that comes to me on a regular basis, which is, shall I would like to be, shall I fill with light, or should I be filled with light, so that I can then emanate the will of God, right? So may my vessel be filled with light so I can emanate the will of God, right? And this is basically me putting my ego aside and allowing my soul and deeper spirit to express itself. Again, I use the word God. You could say infinity, universe, whatever it is. So in the end, if you want to increase your frequency, if you want to discover your purpose is going to lie in the higher frequencies. So stop feeding the parasitic entities, the succubi, whatever you want to call them, but stop discharging your sexual energy. Again, it's your choice, I'm telling you. You should stop though, but so maintain a little bit of discipline, start to transmute that energy, start to shift it around, and also discover that you'll have greater mental clarity and you'll have material level benefits, material world benefits as well. So with all that said, if you struggle with this particular topic, if you struggle with sexual energy, if you're struggling with pornography, etc., I'm able to help. Individual sessions. I also have created programs. My website's posted down below the video, so you can go ahead and check that out. And I appreciate you all watching this video. Thank you.